Welcome back to the newsroom here at France 24. It's time for our international press review in the papers, and Chris Moore is in charge of that today. It's good to see you, Chris. Where are you going to start us off?
Well, Marcus, let's start with Radovan Karadzic in the British tabloid The Sun. Exclusive photos of a beardless Karadzic there, apparently in his cell in Belgrade before being extradited to The Hague. You have a little photo montage there of him as a beardless prisoner, and then as a bearded alternative medic, and then before that, of course, in his time as Bosnian Serb leader. Wouldn't be The Sun without a play on words in the headline. Razorman Karadzic, they call him.
Why is that? Where does that come from?
Because he's had a shave, Marcus.
Okay. Sorry, stupid Marcus.
Okay, let's move on to the Guardian, a slightly more serious story on Serbia. And an analytical piece by Tim Judah, where he really looks at the concept of Serb nationalism, and particularly the failure of international observers to square this circle of Serbs apparently being pro-Europe, but at the same time voting in quite large numbers for nationalist parties. He says, first of all, a Serb nationalist in the true xenophobic sense could end up voting for a pro-European party simply out of jealousy for nations previously regarded as inferior, like the Czech Republic and Romania, supping at the EU high table. A vote for nationalists, he said, could also be a protest vote. Pretty simple. If you don't like President Boris Tadic, you vote for the opposition, just as you would in any other country. He has a little anecdote as well from a Serbian friend of his who says that before Tadic, he had an absolutely atrocious car. He's now got a lovely new automobile, but he's had to take out a huge bank loan to finance it. So for him, Tadic's rule is associated with crippling personal debt. He voted nationalist. In the end, the article said Serbs vote just like anybody else, according to fairly mundane, everyday economic concerns.
All right, that's Karadzic and Serbia and the former Yugoslavia. What's your next story?
Other big story, of course, is Ehud Olmert stepping down in Israel. The Israeli paper Yediot Ahronot describes this as a surprise. The centrist daily really lending its support to his decision, saying that if he needs time to defend himself and spend time with his family, fair enough. Jerusalem Post obviously also leads on this story and looking ahead to who will replace him and really seeing this as a head-to-head between Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni and Vice Prime Minister Shaul Mofez. They do note that if either of these two do win and fail to form a government in the autumn, then we could be seeing Olmert as leader up until spring 2009. Finally, Al Hayat, the Arabic language London-based paper, they too lead on this and focus on what all this could mean for the peace process, really worrying that this could detract from it with the focus on Israeli internal politics.
All right, moving on to Olympic controversy now.
Olympic controversy, yes, this is all over the French papers this morning. The Chinese authorities apparently are stamping down, stopping foreign journalists looking at various websites, various file sharing and news websites, which we would take for granted. Le Figaro leads on that, describing it as a change in tone from the Chinese authorities. Rival paper Libération also talks about that and carries a little story about a journalist who went out on the streets of Beijing with a film crew and an interpreter and ended up having all that confiscated by police simply for taking a photo of a queue, which would give a negative image of the Beijing authorities' organisational capacities. Finally, from what happens when you have not enough internet access to what can happen when you have too much. This in the Times. 42-year-old British computer hacker Gary McKinnon extradited to the United States and facing at least 10 years in prison for hacking into the NASA and US military computer networks, causing the military network to crash. He says he was simply looking for information on aliens and UFOs.
Ouch. 10 years in prison for a bit of hacking.
It did come just after September the 11th, so possibly not the most apt time to do it, but he says it was all about the aliens.
All right, all about the aliens. We'll see what the courts say about that. Thanks very much, Chris Moore, for that, and thank you for watching. Stay with us here at France 24.